Question one is in regards to the approval and construction of high impact electric transmission lines within the state of Maine. If this question were to be approved, it would do two things. It would prohibit the construction of high impact electric transmission lines in the upper Kennebec region, including the NECEC. The second part of this measure would require that any electric transmission line projects that are considered high impact would have to be approved by a 2/3 majority of both chambers of the state legislature of Maine. So, question two is in regards to issuing $100 million worth of general obligation bonds for transportation infrastructure projects. 85 million of that would be going for the construction, reconstruction, and rehabilitation of priority 1, 2, and 3 highways, as well as bridges. And 15 million would go for facilities or equipment related to transit, freight, and passenger railroads, aviation, ports, and harbors, marine transportation, and active transportation projects. The bond would leverage an estimated $253 million in federal and non-state funding through matching grants and programs. This is directly from Ballotpedia. I think that's the best explanation I can give. It's essentially issuing bonds in order to improve infrastructure. That's pretty much what it is. So, question number 3 is in regards to a amendment to the Constitution of the state of Maine. If the amendment is approved via this question, it would be adding the right to food to the Constitution of Maine. Now, what it would specifically be adding to the Constitution is the following: right to food. All individuals have a natural, inherent, and unalienable right to save and exchange seeds and the right to grow, raise, harvest, produce, consume the food of their own choosing for their own nourishment, subsistence, bodily health, and well-being, as long as an individual does not commit trespassing, theft, poaching, or other abuses of private property rights, public lands, or natural resources in the harvesting, production, or acquisition of food. So, what this amendment essentially does is, or would be giving people to the right to raise and grow food, and as long as it's for the for self-sustenance, nourishment, bodily health, and well-being. Right? That means that you could grow anything as long as you're using it for your own well-being or your bodily health or for your own nourishment and substance, right? So you could grow any sort of crop that you could probably be able to eat. Well, not crop, just plant, period, right? Any plant that you could use for self-sustenance, you could grow that. So you could, I don't know what restrictions in regards to what type of plants you can grow in certain places, I guess, but you could grow beans, corn. Sure, if you could grow rice up there, you could grow rice. Now, the thing with this here, which will make it slightly more interesting, is that you could essentially raise any animal as long as it's, as long as you're going to pretty much eat it later on, in the animal's life, right? So you could grow cows, bisons, I don't know, buffalo, if you could do that, in whatever property that you have. And you wouldn't be able to be restricted by the state, essentially, I would say, right? Because it's a constitutional right, unless the state courts decide to interpret it more leniently so that there could be some form of regulation. You could also argue that you could grow any drug related plants, I would say, right? So you could, first thing that comes to mind is marijuana. There's laws out there that restrict the growing of marijuana. There's laws out there that criminalize the use of marijuana. Now, I would say that if marijuana is illegal in Maine, you could argue that making it illegal in Maine would be unconstitutional, if you're a animal rights activist, this will this will harm your movement, at least in the state of Maine. Well, in my opinion, at least, right? I'm not a legal scholar or anything like that, but just from the wording here, it would mean that to a certain extent, you could, like, if the treatment of the animal wouldn't matter, right? Unless the animal itself in the state has its own rights. Because if the animal has its own rights, then these two constitutional rights would be conflicting to a certain extent. But then you could say that no regulation, or at least when it comes to self substance, there wouldn't be any regulation in regards to the treatment of animals who are going to be later killed for substance. So those are the three questions that are going to be on the Maine ballot on November 2nd of 2021. I'll be putting in links for voter registration and how to check voter registration in the description. I'll also be putting links to Ballotpedia articles and news articles in regards to these ballot measures. And of course, if you're registered to vote, go out there and vote. If you're not registered to vote, register to vote, and hopefully you can vote in this election. If you can't, still register so that you can vote in the next one. Anyway, it's the end of the line. If you like the video, give it a like. If you dislike the video, give it a dislike. You want to say something, you can put it in the comment section. And you can also at me at my Twitter and Instagram handles at Xteramage. Have a nice one and go out and